He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 4, and today got a good friend of mine, Coach Mike Nash, head coach at Dunwoody High School. Coach, thanks for being on with us.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm honored. I feel like a superstar.
Well, y'all are all superstars, Coach, and I appreciate y'all taking the time out to come on and tell us your stories and any of the funny stories that y'all have come across along the way. Most of us that are in this business, we laugh and joke with each other and say that a normal human being actually wouldn't believe half the stuff that we've seen.
Absolutely. I think we could all get together and write a best-selling book.
An encyclopedia's worth of books.
Exactly.
So where did you go to high school?
Coach, I went to Shiloh High School. My whole family went to South Gwinnett High School. We're from Snellville. Matter of fact, my great-grandmother was the first postmistress of Snellville. But my whole family went to Snellville or to South Gwinnett High School, and I'm the only one. Me and my brother, we ended up going to Shiloh, which is right down the street in Centerville.
Was it new when you went there?
It was new. It was new. It was built in 1984, and I started in '88. It was new. It kind of splintered off of South Gwinnett. As a matter of fact, when I was there, we used South Gwinnett's high school stadium to play our home games. Back in those days, Gwinnett County wouldn't build your stadium. You had to build your own.
So what all did you play in high school?
I played football and I played football, Coach. I played baseball for 2 years, and honestly, I was probably a better baseball player than I was a football player, but I love football. And then I wrestled for 1 year, and honestly, probably the worst experience of my life. I think that's the toughest daggum sport in the history of mankind, and I just wasn't cut out for it. I got my tail whooped by a guy from Parkview that won 4 state championships when I was a freshman, and I said, I don't want to do this no more.
So who was your coach in high school?
My high school coach was Charlie Jordan. I played for a bunch of great men, man. The best story of my life is the guys that I played for, and I feel like I played for a bunch of legends that not a lot of people know about, but Charlie Jordan was my high school coach.
Well, do you remember your whole staff or just your position
I remember about
coaches?
90% of them. I remember all of them, Coach, but so I guess you would say I'm from the Dewey Alverson coaching tree, and I don't know if you know who that is, but he was at Southwest Cab for a long, long, long time. And most of the guys that coached me came from underneath him. And he was pretty critical in my development as a coach. I didn't know him when I was in high school that much, but as I started coaching, I got to hang around him a lot. And a lot of my coaching philosophy came from him and Coach Jordan. But Coach Jordan was my head coach. And then, as a matter of fact, Coach Jordan meant so much to me that my oldest daughter's named Jordan after Coach Jordan.
Really?
But then our offense coordinator was Ed Myers, who was the head coach at Shamrock. He'd been in the Cab for a long time. But one of my favorite human beings to ever grace this daggone planet. You want funny stories? I could fill a book with funny stories about Ed Myers. But then Jerry Stewart, who was a longtime DC at Parkview and at St. Pius, was one of our coaches. Woody Woodruff was our defense coordinator. Robbie Robinson's won several state championships in Georgia, was one of our coaches. Steve Skeen was our offensive line coach. Jamie Basso was our receivers coach. Trying to think of who I'm forgetting, but I don't know
So
that
you were a Gwinnett County guy before Gwinnett County turned into
Yeah, Coach,
Gwinnett County.
I've been Gwinnett my whole life. Like I said, because when I say my family went to South Gwinnett, I mean my great grandparents went to the Snellville School.
Right.
We've been around forever. So Paul Gilliland Highway, which is the highway between 78 highway between Snellville and Athens, Paul Gilliland was my great uncle.
Okay.
I've been in Gwinnett. I was in Gwinnett my whole life.
So y'all were there after Sherman burned it down.
Absolutely. I think Sherman bypassed Snellville and got to Stone Mountain. I think he got to Stone Mountain before he started lighting matches.
So where'd you end up going to college?
Well, Coach, man, I told you earlier, I say I don't like to talk, but then I start talking and I talk forever. But my story's long, Coach.
That's okay. We got plenty of time.
Out of high school, I went to Mars Hill College.
That's far away.
And when I went to Mars Hill College in Asheville, North Carolina, the only reason I went is because it was the only school in the continental United States that would allow me to play football. I don't think they even wanted me to play football, but they allowed me to play football because a guy named Jeff Davis that my dad went to high school with at South Gwinnett was a legend there, and he called in a favor. And I went there, and I found out real fast that I wasn't a very good college football player. As a matter of fact, I was a terrible college football player. And we had a terrible team. We went 0-11. I had a miserable experience, and I came home after my freshman year with 4 credits. And I hated football so bad I wouldn't even watch it on TV. I didn't want anything to do with football. I hated the sport, and like I said, I wouldn't even watch Super Bowl on TV. And it kind of sidetracked me for a while. But truthfully, that's also kind of what made me who I am. I got home. My mom and dad owned a printing business, and I went to work in the printing business because I was not going to go back to school. And I hated it so daggone bad. I wouldn't do it. So I started running a printing press for my dad. And in the meantime, Coach Jordan, again, like I told you, man, that man is anybody that's ever played for that man loves him. I know that. And so he called me and said, he called me Yoda. That's because I'm short. And I'd like to think he called me Yoda because of my wisdom, but it's not. It's because I was short. That was my nickname in high school. And he said, Yoda, Charlie's from Vidalia, so he's country as hell. But he said, Yoda, I need some help. I don't have enough guys on our 8th grade staff. I need some help coaching the 8th grade. And I did it. And there's no other man in the world I'd have done it for because, like I said, I just didn't want to be around football. But I did it, and it turned out to be great because I got to coach David Pollock and David Green that year. They were both on our team. And next year, he moved me up to 9th grade. Next year, the JV. And my career kind of went that way, and I didn't realize this till a long time later, Coach. But he didn't need me to coach that damn 8th grade team. We had 14 coaches on that 8th grade staff. He knew what I wanted. He knew I wanted to be a coach, and he did that to help me. He didn't ask me for help. He just did that because he knew I wouldn't do it otherwise. I owe him my life for it. But then again, like I said, you asked where I went to college, so I did that, and then life kind of got in the way, and I got married and started having kids. Couldn't go back to college, and I went back to college 19 years later because Ed Shaddix convinced me to because he knew I wanted to coach. And I don't know if you know Ed, but he was the principal at North Gwinnett. And I went back to college 19 years later. So I'm kind of an old guy in this business, but I've also still got 17 years to retire. So I'm a little jealous of you this week.
Well, I still got to put some time in the classroom, but I got 4 or 5 more years to do to get 30. But
yeah, I've coached 27 years, but most of that was as a late coach. I've only been a teacher for 13.
So 13 years as a lay coach, or what'd you say? 19 years as a lay coach?
14 as a lay coach.
14 as a lay coach. Was it all at Shiloh?
No, sir. So, again, when I came back to Shiloh, I coached the high school at Shiloh from 95 to 2001 or 2000. and I was a parapro over there for a couple of years. And then in 2001, I moved over to Grayson with Mickey Kahn. I'd known Mickey. Mickey went to South Carolina High School. I'd known Mickey for a while, so I went over there when Grayson started, and I coached their 8th grade program from 2001 to 2004. And then from there, Coach, gets weird. 2005, I had started doing construction, and I owned a construction business, and I moved down to 30A in Florida, lived in Panama City Beach for 5 years. I tell people I was on a 5-year spring break, but we built about 400 homes on 30A between 2005 2010. Excuse me. 2010, we moved back to to Georgia and coached at North Gwinnett with Bob Spire and great coaching staff, Troy Hobbs and Mo Dixon. And then in 2012, when Coach Hobbs got the job at Shiloh, I went back to Shiloh with him. And then in 2015, when the Dunwoody job came open, I applied for it, and I've been there ever since.
You have one of the most unique paths I've ever heard. I never realized that. I didn't realize.
Coach, it's pretty crazy, Ben. I've done a little bit. Ed Shattuck's. Do you know Ed Shattuck, Coach?
I know the name. I've never met him. No,
He was at school today, and I've known him since I was a kid. And he was telling somebody he's never met anybody that's done as much as I have, and I have. And that old phrase, jack of all trades and master of none, is probably fits me better than anybody. But I can do just about anything, just can't do anything great. But I've had every daggum job you can think of. Like I said, I can step in and run a printing press tomorrow. I can build a house with my bare hands. I can do plumbing, electrical. I can coach football. I can teach. I'm certified in 7 different subjects. But again, I ain't a real good teacher. I just got certified in a bunch of different subjects.
You're MacGyver.
But that's the way Ed described it today. Kind of, I am, but I ain't as good as MacGyver. All MacGyver stuff always worked. Mine don't always work. If you count on me to get us out of a situation, I'm probably gonna get us into a worse situation first.
I never knew. I swear I did not know that you
Coach,
were a lay coach for 20 years.
I worked as the.
There's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's awesome. That's going to be great for people to hear this.
It's crazy, and I love it because it's something I can teach kids. Because I worked as the recreation director at the Fulton County Regional Youth Detention Center on Boulder Crest Road in Atlanta, Georgia. Probably the worst job I ever had.
That's fantastic.
But I worked at a daggum car wash. I owned printing businesses. We've done a little bit of everything. But what I love about it is that when I get to teach kids, and I say this all the time, Coach, I love football and I love being a football coach, but I love teaching. And I tell people all the time, I believe there's 2 kind of people that work in a building, in a schoolhouse. I believe there's people that teach because they love their subject, and most of them are on that English hall. But but I believe there's other people that just love being around kids, and that's me. I don't care what I teach. I've taught special ed, PE, health, marketing, business education, entrepreneurship. Right now I'm teaching home ec. I'm the cooking teacher.
That's what I'm talking
about. Next year I'm starting a new pathway at Dunwoody that only 20 schools have. It's called HEO pathway, which is heavy equipment operation, because I'm the only one in the building that can run a daggum bulldozer.
At Dunwoody High School.
Yes, sir.
Who'd have thunk it?
But what I love about it is I get to teach kids, Coach, for 19, I told you my story. I hated college, so I didn't finish. But for 19 years, I did anything I had to do to survive. I had to do what I had to do to survive because I had 2 kids and a wife.
You got to eat.
And then now I get to do what I want to do because I finally finished and got that piece of paper. So I tell them all the time, just suffer for a little while so you can do what you want to do instead of what you have to do.
Ain't that the truth? I tell you what, you hit on something that I've always told people when they ask, when you go out in mixed company, and by mixed company, I mean people that don't teach or coach, because contrary to what coaches think, there's a whole world out there that really doesn't give a flying fart what we do for a living. And
No,
they're
Coach,
not
they
at
don't
all
care.
impressed with the fact that they could care less that there's a Final Four going on this weekend, and they
No.
really don't care who's winning the state championship next weekend,
Absolutely.
contrary to what we think. But you get in mixed company, and they're like, "Oh, you're a teacher," and yes, I am. And every time they've asked me, "What do you teach, youngins?" I teach kids. We
That's
talk
right.
about math, or we talk about science, or we talk about whatever. You teach kids, and I think if you do that, then you're going to have fun at school every day. I went today. I've got this little pen, them little bootleg teacher, it's like a school store for teachers they have in the teachers' lounge, and they have all that junk in there. I found a pen one time. It's called a no pen, and you press the button, and it says no like 8 different kind of ways. Well, I dug it up and took it to school today. I was aggravating them youngins today with that thing every time they'd ask, Coach Lamb, no. Coach Lamb, no.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I had a ball today at work.
It's fun, Coach. Teach it, and I tell all our younger teachers all the time, and I probably, excuse my language, I probably piss them off every day because I'll be in that daggum teacher's lounge. You talk about teachers, and I try to stay as far away from that place I can get because go in there and it's a bunch of daggum people making copies and being mad. And, I'll be in there and listen to them talking and complaining about kids and everything else, and they don't like them and these daggum kids. I told a couple young teachers last week, and I've probably done this about 10 times. Guys, I got good news for y'all. Or excuse me. I said, guys, y'all probably picked a terrible vocation teaching kids if you don't like kids. But the good news is you're young enough, you can switch. You can go do something else.
Yeah, go do something else.
Honestly, I believe, and I firmly believe this. I firmly believe 2 things. One, if you've never done anything else but be a teacher, I think you ought to be forced to go work with adults for a year before you're allowed to come back. Because I have fun every day. And what you said earlier about what do I teach? I teach youngins. Coach, that's what we do. Right now we're towards the end of the semester, and at the end of every semester, my last unit in home ec, and it was my last unit in special ed, it was my last unit in PE, and my last unit in marketing. It's called Everything You Should Know and Nobody Ever Taught You. And so right now, like yesterday, we learned how to tie a tie. Tomorrow, we're going to learn how to address an envelope. Believe it or not, Coach, I got 96 kids I teach, and last semester, 90 of them didn't know how to address an envelope because they don't do it anymore.
Coach, I'm teaching I'm co-teaching a senior economics class, and the teacher I'm with, she's awesome. Well, we've been doing personal finance for the past, same concept. You know what we did yesterday? We learned how to write a check.
Coach, I do it every year. And every one of them asks, why do I need to know how to write a check? I'm like, guys, at some point you're going to have to write a check. I don't care how digital we get. And the girls, Monday when I taught them how to tie a tie, the girls were like, well, why do we need to know how to tie a tie? And they love it. And that's things people don't get. If you talk to kids the way they talk to you, they'll get you.
Oh, yeah.
I said, the reason you need to know how to learn how to tie a tie is because you're going to date a loser one day.
Yeah.
And you're going to need him to wear a tie to something. He ain't going to know how to tie.
Yeah. Or you're going to have a little boy that ain't got no daddy around, and you're going to have to tie his tie.
We learn how to change a tire and check and jump a car off and check your oil.
Coach, today it was W-4 and W-2 forms. And I told them point blank, I said, look, my wife works in an accounting firm, and thank God, because I am 50. And I've had 1,000 jobs. I've been working since I was 16, and I still screw up a W-2 form. I don't know where to put 0 and 1 or 1 and 0.
I screw it up every time. Every year I owe taxes, and I'm like, how the hell can I owe taxes? I redid my daggum I-9 last year to take out extra money. How can I owe taxes?
Well, I like paying taxes. I don't mind that. I'd rather.
And I go to the bookkeeper. I don't mind paying taxes. I don't like paying them at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. Well.
But every year at the end of the year, I owe extra taxes because my dumb rear end filled out the I-9 wrong and didn't hold enough taxes back.
Yeah, I like sending them a check because I don't believe in letting the government hold my money interest free for a year. I can make that money make money.
I want it to be absolutely exactly right and owe them $0 freaking.
Yeah, even it out. Yeah, we usually do that. Like we'll owe one something
Yeah.
and get something back. Anyway, let's get back to football.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it all ties in because we've said this for years, and for the younger coaches out there listening that love to get up on the board and love to go to the clinic and walk around with all the clothes on and all the stuff on and think they've invented this game, need to understand you're teaching kids.
Exactly what it is.
And
Coach.
if you're a good teacher, you ought to be a doggone good football coach.
Well, and I say it all the time. I had a bad principal one time I told her I needed to hire a couple coaches. She said, I don't need more coaches. I need good teachers. And I said, ma'am, number one, that's probably the biggest insult you could ever give me. But number two, I don't believe you can be a good coach if you're not a good teacher.
Can't.
Because coaching's teaching. I mean, that's all it is. But I hire any idiot to go out there and yell at people.
Yeah. That's what we did when we were young.
Well, that's coach. The game's changed now.
We hollered and screamed, and you can't do that to a youngin' now. They'll offend them.
I'll tell you right now. Now, Charlie Jordan wasn't this guy, and none of those guys I coached for were this guy. But if Charlie Jordan would have told me to do something, I'd have done it 1,000 times because I was scared to death of him. But again, he wasn't that guy. I don't mean that I did it because I knew he loved me, but that's the way it is now. I mean, coach, if you try to coach like that, they'll just walk away, go do something else.
Well, talk about the man you said that had so much influence on you as a coach from the tree from Southwest DeKalb.
Well, Southwest DeKalb, that was Dewey Albertson. He is the guy that brought along, Charlie Jordan and Ed Myers and those guys and Steve Skeen.
So he was the godfather.
Yes, he was. He was the Dave Hunter to Philip Jones and Tommy Jones, and then I was underneath those guys. So we were separated, But he was good to me, and I think he was good to me because Charlie took an interest in me, and Coach, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a high school football coach, and I kind of hung around with them more than hung around with my friends. You know what I mean? And I think Dewey saw that. And I just remember my first head coaching job when I got this at Dunwoody. He's the one that came to me. And he was probably closer to my parents than he was to me, but he's the one that came to me and gave me the best advice that I've ever gotten. And I would give to any young coach that's going into a head coaching job. He said, Michael, I just want you to understand something. When you take a head coaching job, you're not coaching a team, you're not coaching a school, you got to coach the whole community. And I think about that at least once a week. And that was the best advice I've ever gotten, especially at Dunwoody. The community I'm in is special. And but that was some advice he gave me that just you got to coach the whole community. You're not coaching a position, a team, a school. You got to coach the whole community. And like I said, man, I think that's probably what I'm best at. I'm a fair football coach. If I had my way, I'd go run the triple option or the I for the rest of my life. I ain't real good at all the new stuff, but kind of what he gave me was I coach the community and I hire guys that know how to coach. But Coach Jordan is the one that had the most. Coach Jordan and Coach Myers are the ones that had the most impact on me. And I'll give you an example. And I ain't gonna use a name here, but I got a best friend here in the community that been good to me, and he played for a legend. Now, if I gave you the name, and I'll give it to you when we ain't on tape, but just a famous football coach in Metro Atlanta, won more games than 90% of coaches in the history of the state of Georgia. And he's always bragging on him, and I'm always talking about Coach Jordan when we get together, and we might have a beverage or two or whatever. But he's always bragging on him. And one time I asked him, we like to go on boat trips together. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, what was your personal relationship with your coach? And he sat there for a minute, and this was the toughest guy I know. And he almost got a little teary-eyed. He looked at me and said, well, what the hell do you mean by that? What was my personal relationship? I said, I don't know. I'm just asking what your personal, Coach Jordan's special to me. And, this day, if there's a problem, I call Coach Jordan. My daughter had my first grandbaby. I called Coach Jordan. What was your personal relationship with your coach? And he looked at me and goes, I played for that guy 4 years. I don't think he knew my name. And I it might be the most I've ever appreciated Coach Jordan. And like, you know what, man, I can't say that. That guy cares about me. And he calls me. He calls me. If I ain't called him in a while, he calls me just to see how everything's going. You know, we went back this year and played Shiloh. He comes to at least one game every year. But this year we go back and play Shiloh the last game of the season. And the field is named after Coach Jordan because he built it there. And he comes to the ball game and he stands on my sideline. And I try to think about that when I'm aggravated, you know, when I'm aggravated with kids and think, you know, if that guy had that impact on me, I'm having that impact on somebody, whether it's good or bad. And I need to make sure it's for the good, not for the bad.
Absolutely. I mean, because you just don't know how you may be that kid's person.
Because you may be the only person that's taken any interest in that kid all day.
Yeah, even if it's lighting them up for, you know, being a knucklehead. You know what I mean?
That's a good.
Might
when
be
I first started, and I'm out there coaching, and I think the way to go is just to yell at everybody and shoot a back and everything else and be mean as hell. Coach Jordan pulled me aside and again said, Yoda. He said, listen, you can tear that kid down as much as you want to, but before this day's over, you better find a way to build him back up. He said, I don't care if you lie to him. You can tell him he's got the nicest pair of cleats you've ever seen, but you better find something good to tell him for you.
Yeah, that's the way the old heads used to tell us. You can call him anything but a child of God while we out here on this grass, but before he leaves this parking lot, you better hug his neck and tell him you love him. Because he better show back up tomorrow.
But
or you won't.
Like I said, I take that. I'm 50 years old, man. I ain't played football in 34 years, but I remember it. I remember it every time. If I'm chewing a kid out and I get mad at him, you know, we do that. But kids they do dumb things. I tell people all the time, if they quit doing dumb things, they ain't gonna need us. They're gonna fire us. So, but I think about it every day. If I'm getting on a kid, I think, you know, I better make sure I make that kid knows I love him before he leaves.
Well, you coached for another legend. Several legends. Let's go to Mickey Conn at Grayson. Good Lord, you've coached at some good places.
God,
I mean, how awesome was that?
That guy was just, again, I was the 8th grade coach, not a high school coach, but Mickey was good to me. And we were always friends. And I don't even know how to say it, man. And it goes back to what you were talking about a minute ago. You talk about these X's and O's and all these young guys like to get on there and they like to draw up everything. Mickey's just a dang winner, dude. Mickey's won at everything he's ever done. I mean, he's just, you know, he went to University of Alabama out of South Gwinnett and honestly wasn't a great football player. And somehow he goes to Alabama and everybody talked about it in town. There's no way he's going to play at Alabama and this and that. And then, you know, he goes to Grayson. There's no way he's going to, he wasn't an assistant football coach, but a couple of years before he got that Grayson job. And everybody talked about, you know, he wasn't going to be able to do it over there. He's too young, and he did it. Then he goes to Clemson, and everybody's talking about, you know, well, he can't do that. Now he's a daggum co-DC. I mean, the guy ain't never done anything but win in his whole friggin' life, and he's a winner. I mean, at some point, you got to look at it and say, there's something to it, man. There's something to it. That guy's just a freaking winner.
Yeah, we had young coaches in America's. Brandon
his energy's insane, Coach. His energy's insane.
Yeah, we had a young coach with us in America's, Brandon Priest, and he played
for
him.
I know Brandon Priest. I coached Brandon Priest.
Yeah, Brandon's he was like, I don't want to say little brother, or, you know, because he was younger, but he was like a little brother. And, you know, me and my wife really loved him and his family, and his parents would come down and everything, and, you know, his good people. And Brandon, great guy. And, you know, and he was coaching at Monroe area. And man, I tell you what, that joker would cut your head off over Mickey Conn now.
Coach, I coached Brandon and Chandler. Chandler was his older brother.
Yeah.
And then his daddy was great friends, best friends with one of the other guys I coached with, who I think is probably the most underrated coach in the state of Georgia, which is Robbie Robinson.
Oh yeah, Robbie Robinson is one of my people too now.
Coach Robbie is.
I don't know why, but he's always been good to me, and I'll fight somebody over that man now.
Robbie's always been good to everybody, but that's you were talking about funny stories, Coach. Again, I could fill a book with Robbie Robinson and Ed Meyer stories.
Well, let me have them.
At Shiloh High School, with our admin. Our admin did not like football one bit. And I mean, you know, from the names I give you, I played for a bunch of guys that were football guys. You know, Roger Robinson had a poster of Elvis Presley and a poster of Robert E. Lee in his classroom. And they were constantly giving him hell. And they didn't care. And Ed Meyer, man, I can say it now because Ed's passed and he ain't gonna get in trouble no more. But you know, Ed would smoke all the daggum time. That's the funny thing, Coach. That's the funniest thing I think I could ever remember is when we played back in our day. Ed Meyer would be, God, he might go to prison today over the stuff he did. It really was harmless, but I remember Ed was awesome, and he would his biggest goal was to make me throw up in practice. Biggest goal. And we had them old bike helmets, and he'd be out there smoking and blow smoke in my ear hole and look at me and say, "You gonna puke, Yodi? You gonna puke?" And I was like, "I'll eat it first. I ain't doing it." But then one time we were in study hall. We had study hall, which was hilarious because none of us studied. But we were in the theater at Shiloh High School, and we were all sitting forward, and all the coaches are sitting up on the stage, and Ed Meyer's sitting up there smoking. Now imagine this, Coach, today. Ed Meyer's sitting up there on the stage smoking a cigarette, and the principal walked in. Ed didn't have time to put the damn cigarette out, and he didn't have time to blow the smoke out of his mouth, so he just stuck the cigarette behind his back. Now, imagine this, Coach. You got 80 football players sitting out there in the seats, and the principal's up there talking to Coach Jordan, and Ed's sitting beside him with a cigarette behind his back, and he can't blow the smoke out, and the smoke's all coming from the back of his head because the damn cigarette's still blowing. And all of us are just dying laughing. I'll give you another good one. We had an assistant principal, and again, I ain't gonna give you no names, but he was always trying to catch them doing something wrong. And we were all in PE one day, and they were in the coach's office, and of course Ed's back here smoking, and this assistant principal goes back here and unlocks the door and walks in without knocking. I guess he caught Coach Myers smoking. And all we see is the assistant principal running through the gym and Coach Meyer chasing him, calling him every name in the book. And I ain't going to say the words, but he called him a pencil neck SOB. But he said it out loud. And I didn't know this till later on, but to when I started coaching with them a couple years later, and I asked Coach Jordan and Coach Myers about it. And so whatever happened that day? And they said, well, they got him in the office, and they were going to make him sign a statement that he called so-and-so an SOB. And he said, I will not sign that statement. That is not true. And the assistant principal says, you said it. I got witnesses. You said it. I said, I did not call you an SOB. I called you a pencil neck SOB, and I ain't signing it until you fix it.
He wanted it properly documented.
So, again, none of these guys can get in trouble now, but I'd learned so much. I learned so much when I started coaching with them that I didn't know. And they did so much stuff. I coach with freaking legends. I don't care what anybody says, but.
So then you go to North Gwinnett and you coach with another legend that came from another state that probably brought a whole nother brand of nonsense to the table.
Oh, my God.
I'm not saying guys, I don't know him. I'm not saying he's that way, but you know what I'm saying. You come from somewhere else, you just bring more experiences.
Total freaking opposites. Total opposites. But the one thing I will say about Bob and those guys, and really when you talk about that, it's about all of them. And I still got a group text with those guys, and we're still on a group text together, and they've all dispersed everywhere. You know, Sam Adams is the head coach at Oxford. He was there in Alabama, and Mo Dixon, who I still think to this day in my life is the best high school football coach I've ever seen. And then, you know, Bob's back up in Kentucky, and he's killing it. And Troy's at Camden. I mean, they're all over the place, and they're great coaches. But totally different because it wasn't that old school Georgia football stuff, but they were also always interested in that. They were interested in that. They didn't come down here and act like they were better than everybody else, man. They respected that, and it was cool. But Bob taught me so much, and football wise, Bob taught me as much as anybody. But he did it in a different way. He really did. I remember I was the ninth grade head coach, and I was calling offense, and we're playing Peachtree Ridge, and they're playing a defense. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I'm like, because I went there wanting to learn. I had this mindset that I wanted to try to merge the spread with a traditional offense like an I. And, Bob convinced me you can't really do that. You won't have to be all in or all out. And the one thing I loved about Bob, because Bob started wing T, but the one thing I loved about Bob was he told me, he's like, neither one of them's wrong, man. You ain't got to be spread, but it's going to be really hard to be spread and wing T or spread A and I. And so we're in the middle of a game, and I walk over to Bob, and it's just how he was. I'm like, hey man, what the hell should I call against these guys? He goes, I ain't telling you. You got to figure that out on your own. That was just him. I mean, he lets you learn, and his kid was the quarterback at the time. Like, he had every reason to tell me something to make his kid look good. But I learned a lot from Bob, man. I learned a lot of organization from him. I learned a lot of Booster Club stuff from him, and learned a ton of football from him.
So then you parlay it into the Dunwoody job, and what a unique situation. I know we talked years ago when it was a year or two after you got it, and you told me some things about that situation up there that just blew me away about the support and the community and the kids. And you're like, come on, man. And I'm like, come on up here with me. I'm like, dude, you know how I feel about Atlanta. I can't make myself deal with that kind of situation. And you had an apartment that they set you up with, and
Coach, it
was just amazing to me. I was like, you got to be kidding me, because y'all are daggum slap down in the middle of Atlanta.
Yeah, Coach, we live in the highest rent district in the state of Georgia. And it's tough on a teacher or football coach or anything else. But and honestly, like, I've told you before, when I got there were 17 kids signed up to play football. And
so what'd you do when you came in? Like, what was mission one? Like, you've come from Grayson,
mission
you come
one
from
was,
Gwinnett. I mean, I know you got to recruit, but I mean, what's recruit the halls?
Number one thing I did was I decided I'm not going to try to go get a bunch of old heads. I got to get a bunch of young guys, because, they've been playing old school football, and Jim Shofty was the one that left, and Jim was a hell of a football coach. He still is, and he helps me to this day. I've got nothing but good things to say about Jim, but they've been playing old school football, and it just. I don't know. I guess the only way I would say it is it just didn't fit as far as getting kids to play. They were good. I mean, they weren't bad, because they were damn good. But, I know his problems were he just didn't have enough kids.
Right.
So I had to find a way to get kids, and I needed numbers, because we had nothing. Like, our weight room was crap. We had like 2 or 3 racks and a cement floor, and no locker room, no lights, no field. I mean, it was. So my first thing was, and I walked in that first day, and now listen, I'll tell you the truth. After that first interest meeting I had in May, and when Tom McFerrin offered me the job, I don't know if you know this, but T. McFerrin's son was the principal. So I know I'm sidetracking here, and we ain't got all the time in the world.
That's
when
awesome.
When I went and did the interview, a guy named Steve Fortenberry was in the room, who's a legend at Dunwoody and in DeKalb County. Tom McFerrin and some other people were in the room. We did all the culture stuff and the classroom stuff and all that. And I thought, man, I killed that. And then they said, all right, we're going to get in the football portion, and freaking T. McFerrin walks in the room. Tom brought his dad in, like he brought in the damn ringer. It's like the guy from the Mets that comes in as a relief pitcher, and they're blowing the freaking flute or whatever the hell that thing is. And he starts drawing stuff up on the board, and he draws up a 3-5 with a pressure, and he goes, "How are you going to protect this?" And I'm like, "Holy crap, man, this is T. McFerrin." You know, again, I grew up in Georgia. I know who this guy is.
I'm going to get in too
And,
tight and make that boy put his hand in the dirt, and we're going to run.
Yeah, so no, I drew up a protection that I had learned from Chuck Allen, who is now the offensive line coach at Grayson, but he was our offensive line coach at North Gwinnett. And I learned, and I'm an offensive line guy. That's what I am by trade. I'm not a head coach. I'm an offensive line coach. But I've learned this protection from Chuck, and it's a half slide, half man protection.
Right.
And I drew that thing up, just man, boom, boom, boom. And I'm thinking, God, he's going to pick this thing apart. And he goes, "Where'd you learn that?" And I go, "Well, I learned it from a guy named Chuck Allen." He goes, "That's my protection." And at first I was like, "God, man, I stole his protection because I'm scared to death." Then I was like, "Hell yeah, I killed that. I drew up his protection."
Yeah, atta baby.
But anyway.
Stay hot, kid. Stay hot.
Yeah. So I get the job, and I'll be honest, Tom called me to offer me the job, and I was throwing BP baseball coach. I was a head baseball coach before I was a head football coach, but
Me too.
well, here I ain't even gonna go into that. I'll just tell you this: I was a head baseball coach and a head girls soccer coach at the same time at Shiloh, and they play in the same damn season. Figure that one out.
I bet that was fun.
But I was throwing BP, and Tom calls me and offers me a job, and I was like, "Man, I just don't know if I can do it, man. I don't know if I want to come to work in DeKalb County." I said, I've heard too much. And Tom promised me, he said, "You're not coming to work in DeKalb County. You're coming to work at Dunwoody High School. And you're going to work for me, and I ain't going anywhere." Well, hell, he left 2 years later and made me mad. But anyway, so I come to work that first day, and we got 17 kids at our interest meeting. And I went home, and I looked at my wife, and God bless my wife. I said, "Babe, I think I messed up. I think I need to go back to Shiloh," because the Shiloh job was open too. And I thought about taking that one, and I didn't. And my wife looked at me and said, "Well, if you do that, then you're not the man that you say you are. You took this job, and you need to stick to it." And honestly, that's the only reason I stayed. But I did, and I appreciate it. My first goal was I needed to hire young guys, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't care if they knew anything about football. But I needed guys that could go recruit kids out of that daggone building. And that's what we did. And I remember registration day, we had 28 kids on the football team on registration day, and we were playing in a week. We were playing our scrimmage game in a week against North Springs. So all my coaches, I told them, "You find any kid that looks like he might be able to play football, and you recruit him." And we did. And so we ended up with 65 kids that first week. My Mike linebacker was a kid named Stevie D. Gebhardt. And he practiced Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He had a meeting on Thursday, so he couldn't practice. And on Friday, he called the defense. Now, this ain't no glory story because we got the hell beat out of us. But we ended up with 65 kids that year, and that was our goal. That's what we did. We built the program, and we started building. Now we get an average of 120, 150 kids every year. So
that's insane.
And I attribute that to those guys, man. And I'm lucky, man. I got guys now, and this will blow your mind. But number one, I've been at that school for 10 years. Ain't nobody anywhere for 10 years anymore. And I've got guys that have coached with me. I got one guy that's coached with me for 14 years. And then I got 4 or 5 that have been with us for 8 to 10. I mean, it's a special place, man. The community is phenomenal. The school's phenomenal. We've seen a bunch of changes, but it's still a great community.
And the kids work.
They work. Now, I'll be honest, that's probably one of our downfalls is, and I tell people this all the time, and I tell them when I hire them, you got to understand this is a different place now. It's our kids work. Don't get me wrong, but it ain't. Football is not the most important thing in Dunwoody. It's just not, and I get it. I mean, I tell them all the time. They all come from, very, I don't want to say privileged because I hate that freaking word, but very successful families. And I tell them, you're all going to go to whatever school you want to. Our average GPA is like a 3.6, 3.7. You're all going to go to the college you want to. You're all going to join a fraternity. You're going to marry some hot chick. You're going to drive a better car than I drive, and you're all going to move back to Dunwoody. I get it. Like, you don't have to have this to get out of here. Ain't nobody trying to get out of Dunwoody. They're just trying to go somewhere and come back. And but I get that. So you got to take and that's what I tell all my coaches when I hire them and interview them. You got to understand that. And if that's not what you want to be about, then this is probably not the job for you. Because at the end of the day, that's the bad. The good is I don't deal with discipline. I don't deal with grades. When I was at Shiloh and other places, I had to set a table up when we got report cards and see if everybody could practice. Now I don't have to do that.
You essentially have what people perceive as private school type kids in a public school setting.
Absolutely, Coach. Absolutely, no question. The only difference is private schools can hold it over a little bit, but I can't. There's public school kids. And I love my offense coordinator's a guy named Matt Schmitz. And again, I think Matt, football-wise, is probably the best coach I've ever been around in my life. If it wasn't for him, I might have gone and done something else a long time ago. But he has a great analogy. And these kids will go play basketball, or they'll go do something else. And I love what he always says. He said, "Yeah, man, high top or tank tops and air conditioning's undefeated." You got to be careful. We're asking these kids to do a whole lot. And, they don't have to have it. So,
well, they about gotten to where they like that everywhere.
It is, Coach. But I'm done. What's different now? I'm telling you, these jokers are rolling up in brand new BMWs, and I'm rolling up my 240,000 mile truck.
Well, how are their attitudes? I mean, are they respectful? Or are they?
Coach, best kids ever. Best kids ever. I don't have problems, Coach. I just don't have problems. And that ain't got nothing to do with me. They're not. When I say they're well-off kids, I don't mean they're entitled or spoiled or the best kids ever. I did the craziest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if you get this at your school. I'd never gotten it anywhere I'd ever been. After every practice, we have to stand around for about 10 minutes until every kid comes around and says, "Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach." It just fist bumps every one of us. It's like, what the hell are you thanking me for, man? This is my job. Like, they're literally every single coach. It's the craziest thing you ever seen. If you've never seen it, it'll blow your mind.
Oh, I would crap my pants. I'd be like, man, get away from me.
One of my favorite things in the world. One of my favorite things in the world is when I hire a new guy from somewhere else. I love that first practice just to sit and watch that guy. Because he's like, what in the hell is going on? Like, every kid is thanking me. And I'm not kidding, Coach. 140 kids coming by, shaking your hand, bumping your fist, telling you thank you for coaching them. They are phenomenal kids. They're great kids.
So you're telling me when Jimmy Thompson, our buddy James, was at Northview, he was dealing with the same kind of kids?
Yeah, Jimmy, and I told you this before our call, but Jimmy's, honestly, man, he's probably one of my favorite people I've ever been around. And we got to be really good friends. We were in a region together for 4 years. Neither one of us were worth crap. But now I will say this, Jimmy was able to do things at that place I don't think anybody will ever be able to do again. Because he's not only a great guy, but he is a phenomenal football coach. The things he did with personnel packages and motions and just, man, he kicked my butt. But we used to meet at midfield every year before the game, and we would actually talk and say, man, I'm so glad I get to play you this week. I ain't got to get to play against somebody I don't like or some guy that's macho and just wants to come out here and run the score up. But we had a genuine respect for each other, and we talked a lot about the benefits. And again, it's the good versus the bad, but we talked a lot about the benefits at coaching somewhere where, number one, you're appreciated, and number two, you got good kids, and you don't have all the I mean, honestly, you don't have all the pressure in the world, but people appreciate what you do. I mean, because back in those days, and we've gotten better in the last couple of years, where we're actually competing, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a football coach, and as Ed Meyer said one time, I cheated checkers to win. But you know, it's also it's pretty special when you're at a place where people appreciate what you do without the winning. I mean, there was times back in those days when we'd get our tail kicked in. We'd have them play Norcross and Archer and all those teams that we didn't have any business playing. And I'd be down on the sidelines after a game getting beat by 40. And I'd be cleaning up the sidelines and have parents walk by and pat me on the back and say, Coach, just don't leave us. We know what you got. And it's like, where the hell does this happen? You know, and it is. It's different. You know, it's different to get that.
Well, that's good to hear, especially this day and time, because some people, well, a lot of people, most people, have such unrealistic views of, you know, what high school athletics are supposed to be and what they're supposed to be about. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with a kid being a good little old high school football player, or a good little old high school baseball player, or, you know, just a good, you know, kid. You know, everybody thinks their kids got to sign an NIL.
I built my life on being a good high school football player and a terrible college football player.
And a jack of all trade and a master of none.
That's exactly right, man. That's what I am.
Well, at least you can do stuff. I can't do nothing.
You want me to come fix something at your house? I can fix it one way or another.
Yeah, I can't. I have no marketable skills whatsoever. None. Zero. Nothing. I can paint. I'm a good painter. I'm slow, but I'm really good.
Now, Coach, that's one thing I'm terrible at. I will tell you that. I am terrible at painting. My wife will tell you. I'm a good
painter. I'm just really
Coach,
slow.
I had a house, my last house in Lawrenceville, which I hate that I sold, but there was a crawl space / basement that didn't have a floor in it. I dug the damn basement out by myself, and we finished the basement and put a 2-bedroom apartment in it. I can do that. But if you ask me to paint a cabinet, man, you better have a lot of lacquer thinner or something to clean everything up.
Yeah, see, I can do that. That's the only marketable skill I have. I don't know how to fix anything. Every time we've moved, which is more than 7 times, Rachel has to do all the hook up the electronics, all that other stuff. Now, doing this podcast and stuff, I've kind of learned how to do this. I've learned how to do Canva stuff. I've kind of learned how to do some stuff, but I know how to change a tire. I know how to change an alternator. I know how to change the oil. That's it.
Well, I've learned that stuff recently just because of freaking YouTube, Coach.
I mean, if you open up the hood on a truck and you tell me, I can explain how it works. I mean,
I can't do that. I still to this day, a combustible engine just makes no sense to me whatsoever.
I'm still trying to figure out how regular television works. I think that's amazing. But
yeah, I can't do that neither.
I can get down with calculus and physics and things like that. And I mean, on paper, I can take tests and I can throw a score up there, but you just hand me something that are built-in skills and say, hey, go do this.
I think I'm the opposite. I think we need to make a good team because I'm the opposite, because I can't tell you how anything works, but I can figure out how to make it work. And if it's built out of wood, brick, mortar, just give it to me and let's go.
Yeah, I'd be your helper. Like, hey, Lamb, go get this and bring it here. I'd be a good here and there guy.
Engineer. You'd be the engineer or the architect.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. The only thing I can engineer and architect is I'm good with kids. That's what one of the teachers told me today. She was like, I love having you in class because you are so funny and so good with these kids, the relationships you have. And I was like, yes, ma'am, thank you. And I'm like, I'm just trying to say, you know, and she's been doing it a long time, and she's such an excellent teacher. And she's an English teacher, believe it or not, but she makes it so, and I like reading, so she makes it so engaging. We listen to this podcast that it's telling a story and the kids are all into it, and it's like 6 minutes, and then she'll change and we do something else. And it's like going to football practice. We do individual, we do group, we do a little team, and we do a little scrimmage. And I'm like, man, Miss King, you should have been a doggone football coach. This is awesome. and the kids get into it, and I'm like, you make the class what it is. I'm worse than the kids. I participate and raise my hand, and I cut up with the kids. I mean, she could probably send me to the office once a week because I'm disrupting class. But
Coach, that's pretty cool, man. Because I was a teen teacher for a while, and I got to be honest, that's one of the places in education that I think needs fixed. Because like every teen teaching situation I was ever in, all I had was they wanted me to be the disciplinarian all the time.
Well, I tell them up front, I'm not going to do that. And if I've got a teacher that's going to be, and now that I'm older and you've got younger teachers, I can just tell them up front, this is not how this works. I'm not the daddy. This is your classroom. I'm just helping, and I'm assisting, and I assist everybody, but I'm really, really if we want to be technical, and I'm sure there's going to be some administrators out there that pitch a fit and are saying, I'm an idiot and I'm never hiring this guy, and that's fine. But
if they don't want to hire you, you don't want to be hired.
I'm really there to make sure you don't get sued.
Yeah.
Because you don't want the federal government pounding on your head because that paperwork ain't filled out right.
Well, I also don't want it to sound like I know I used English teachers as a reference earlier.
Oh no, because I ain't the only one.
Believe it or not, when I first went to school, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a literature teacher. I had great literature teachers in high school, and that's what I wanted to do.
Mike, if I could do anything in the world and make what I make, I'd write. Like that blog post I wrote about my last day, my 30 years of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people email me and go, we didn't realize you could write like that. Did you write that, or did ChatGPT? I said, ChatGPT, I don't know how to barely text. I don't know how I said, no, I grew up writing. I love to write. If I could write and make the money I make, I would do that. Well, to be honest with you, if I could cut grass on the golf course, I would make the same amount of money. I'd cut grass.
I think I love turf because it keeps fields together, but I think it's the worst invention in the history of mankind because there was nothing better than when I just be able to get out and cut grass every day after football practice.
Yeah, especially now with the way I still have to wear like full headphones. I can't do the AirPods, but I could put on headphones and just go. That's why I'm kind of jealous of my son's got hearing aids and they're Bluetooth. So he's always like, he was wearing AirPods before AirPods were cool.
Yeah.
So, Grayson's always, if he's got his iPad or his phone or whatever, I mean, it's kind of aggravating as a parent sometimes because you're trying to get his attention and people are like, oh, he's ignoring us. And we're like, no, he's Bluetoothed into his device. So you're going to have to go over there.
That used to be my favorite thing in the world. My booster club bought me, before we got that turf at Dunwoody, we laser graded our field, we planted it, and everything was good. And every day, as soon as practice was over, they bought a big Toro reel mower, and it was like 10 feet wide. And we bought it from the Braves. When the Braves moved from Turner Field to Truist, they just sold their 2 Toros, and we bought one of them. So every day after football practice, I'd put headphones in, and I'd get on the Toro, and I'd cut the field because he got the rollers, and it gets rid of the cleat marks and all that. And I loved it because I could cut the grass, and if any parents walked up, if it was a parent I knew I didn't have a problem with, I'd stop. And if it was one I was like, oh, my God, I don't know what this is about, I'd just point to my headphones like, I can't hear you. And keep on moving.
Well, Coach, I sure have enjoyed it. You have had one of the most unique climbs to the big chair of anybody I've ever heard. And to me, that tells people. Unique. Go ahead.
I said, I don't know how big it is, but it's definitely unique.
Well, it tells people that there are different ways to get there.
Absolutely, man.
And not to give up on wanting to do what you dream. And like you said, you can use it to reach kids and let them understand that, it's never too late and never stop working.
That's the biggest thing I tell people is if this is something you think you want to, and I got a guy right now that's coaching our youth program that called me last week and said, Mike, I want to sit down and talk to you. And this guy's been a very successful business guy. He's like, I want to sit down and talk to you. I've been coaching the 8th grade for the last 4 years, and I love this, and I think this is what I want to do. And my advice to him was, man, freaking do it. Like, don't sit around and think about what's going to be your barricades to getting in it. Just do it, dude. Just do it. And ain't nobody, you know what? You might go broke getting it done, but once you get it done, again, I don't make near the money I made building houses on 38. I can promise you that. But I'm happy now, man. And I tell people I don't make the money I made, but I know every 2 weeks how much money's going in my bank account so I can manage that. And I get to go hang around with kids all freaking day, and I ain't got to deal with adults. And it's been worth every bit of that. So the biggest thing I tell people is, I don't care how long you've been out of it. I don't care how long you've thought about it. If you want to do it, break down, go do it, and just suffer through it now, so that you don't have to do what you have to do. You get to do what you want to do.
Well, I'm so glad you get to do what you want to do, Coach. I appreciate you being on with us.
I appreciate what you do, man. You don't know, you have no idea the value you bring to high school football coaches, not only in Georgia, but everywhere else. I'll be honest with you, man. I don't follow a whole lot of people on Twitter, but I check your page every freaking day.
Well, I appreciate it.
Every day.
All right, Coach. Well,
All right, brother. Have
it's
a good
been
one,
fun.
man.
You too.